Here we go. Okie from Muskogee by Myrtle Haggard.
We don't smoke marijuana in Muskogee.
We don't take our trips on
We don't
LSD.
take our trips on LSD.
We don't burn our draft
We don't
cards down
burn our
on Main
draft
Street.
cards down on Main Street.
We like living right.
We
and
like
being
living right and being free.
We don't make a party out of
loving. We
like
like
holding
holding
hands
hands and
and
pitching woo.
We don't let our hair grow long
and shaggy. Where's Michael?
like the hippies out in San
Francisco
Francisco.
do. Here we go. Come on. I'm proud to be an Okie from Muskogee. Oh, it's on the screen.
A place where even squares can have a ball. We still wave old glory down at your house.
The courthouse.
And white lightning
And white
still
lightning
the
still
biggest
the
thrill of all.
all.
And white lightning still the biggest thrill of all.
Muskogee, Oklahoma, USA. Woo-woo!
Still can't hear anything. We can't hear anything yet.
Well, I think you're talking about dinosaurs. And I am one of them. So thank you very much, Glenn.
You still can't hear anything there at the hall.
There we go.
Whoa. Okay. You were there for a moment.
Carol, where are you? Thought of the day. Come on up.
I was going to say I look much better there than right now. I had a disagreement with a sidewalk the other night, and the sidewalk won. Fortunately, I don't have any other broken bones, so that's good. Okay, today I am going to read the rules for being human. 1, you will receive a body. You may like it or hate it, but it will be yours for the entire period. Number 2, you will learn lessons. You are enrolled in a full-time informational school called Life. Each day in this school, you will have the opportunity to learn lessons. You may like the lessons or think them irrelevant and stupid. Number 3, there are no mistakes, only lessons. Growth is a process of trial and error experimentation. The failed experiments are as much a part of the process as the experiment that ultimately works. And number 4, a lesson is repeated until it is learned. A lesson will be presented to you in various forms until you have learned it. When you have learned it, then you can go on to the next lesson. Learning lessons does not end. There is no part of life that does not contain its lessons. If you are alive, there are lessons to be learned. Number 6, there is no better than here. When your there has become here, you will simply obtain another there that will again look better than here. And number 7, others are merely mirrors of you. You cannot love or hate something about another person unless it reflects to you something you love or hate about yourself. Number 8, what you make of your life is up to you. You have all the tools and resources you need. What you do with them is up to you. The choice is yours. Number 9, your answers are inside you. The answers to life's questions lie inside you. All you need to do is look, listen, and trust. And number 10, you will forget all this. And I just wanted to say, since joining Rotary, I've met a lot of really nice humans here. So
Thank you very much, Carol. That was wonderful. All right, let me acknowledge some folks that, again, that are really dedicated to our club and really help out a lot. First, today's Spur reporter is Alan Burnham. Thank you very much. The Spur publisher is Ted Michaels. Meeting photographer you haven't figured out was Mark Roberts. Audio visual today is Dennis O'Brien, and the Zoom host and chat monitor is Jeff Youngsma. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. Now, I understand Mr. Roberts has some sort of audacious statement that he needs to make at this point because the HR people that you hired suck big time. This replacement is not working out for me.
Different committee you put me on. But that one, you got to keep your committees straight, President Splin. This is the committee, the Rotarian Presidential Theme Subcommittee report. Yeah, well, if you wouldn't assign so much work, you wouldn't get so many reports.
The current theme is this is the best damn 90 minutes of your week. Do better.
And Splend wants to actually leap to the end. There's a lot of process that goes into this. So Presidential Splend appointed a steering committee to address this critical task. As you know, presidential themes are critical to inspire the success of a local club, to recruitment and member retention, and to the overall impact that a club can have on the community and the world. That's why this is important, okay? President Splend recognized after an enlightened member of the club noted that perhaps his theme lacked a certain je ne sais quoi. President Splend appointed a steering committee to address the critical task. David Rounds, myself, and Sheila Faliano have been working away for the past 2 months on this. And if you think this is easy work, we have a report for you, just to give you a sense of the scale of the activities that have been going on. You probably have forgotten all the activities that were the July activities. We're going to quickly recap, okay? Steering committee has been formed and held its first meeting. Bylaws, rules were evaluated, open meeting rules, conflict of interest rules, financial reporting, Robert's rules of orders, filibuster rules. After debate, rules were determined to be unhelpful, okay? However, wine was determined to be essential, okay? We debated whether the steering committee should actually be a blue ribbon commission, okay? However, we determined that blue might be interpreted as a political statement, so we retained the steering committee title. Blue, red, that one didn't land. Okay. Unanimously approved a request for a budget increase. We voted to send the budget request to the finance subcommittee to finalize the amount. We figured out we didn't have a budget subcommittee. We appointed a budget subcommittee, which we determined would be a committee of the whole. We set a schedule to review the budget. We determined that we needed a leadership group, as all great endeavors do, to lead the process. We scheduled a meeting to discuss the process of appointing a leadership group. Okay, so that was July. In August, so far, I resemble that remark. It's the process, not the outcome, that's important, especially when people may be unhappy with the outcome. Okay, last month, you heard what we did. The subcommittee determined that only the finest minds should be part of the leadership group, and therefore we appointed ourselves as the leadership group. We discussed whether the leadership group and the steering committee should meet separately, serially, or as a joint committee of the whole. We determined that the meeting schedule needed to be structured, but allow enough flexibility to deal with changes in upcoming events. We found that a retreat would be necessary to determine a long-term strategy for both the steering committee and the leadership group. President Splend has noted that he wants to be a part of the retreat. Okay. And we continue to wait for a report back from our budget subcommittee. So while there's been an enormous amount of progress, as you can see on this, we continue to work at this every month, and we look forward to our report back in September. Splend, thank you very much for giving us this weighty task.
And I wholeheartedly endorse the process. This is a fantastic process. Whatever it takes, Mark, money, time. And by the way, I'm going to, your student loans canceled. I think I could do that. I heard I could do that. Somebody told me I could do that. Finance committee said, your student loans canceled. Congratulations. All right. Do we have any visiting Rotarians? Let me first check on Zoom. Jeff, do we have anybody?
Not anybody that I recognize, so I think we're good.
Thanks very much. How about in the room? Do we have any visiting Rotarians? Okay, how about any visitors on Zoom, Jeff? Is there anyone?
It looks like Clark Streeter is a guest of Kathy's, unless Clark is a dues paying member.
He is. But it's nice to see Clark, even on Zoom. Welcome. All right, how about in the room? We have some visitors. Start off with Barbara.
This is actually Glenn's guest,
Thank you, Barbara.
Linda Stanford, and she's lived in Livermore for 26 years.
Welcome, Linda.
Thank you.
Linda retired from the Pleasanton Unified School District and has lived in Livermore for a very long time, a dear friend. And her son's getting married, and he's a deputy sheriff in Santa Clara County. Not to leave out her daughter, who is much better looking.
And I have the privilege of introducing another one of Splend's guests. Like I was a guest and now maybe a future Rotarian. Steve Lanza is retired he's a retired VP from Lamb Research, and he's the principal for Tri-Valley Advising. Welcome, Steve.
Right, welcome, Steve. Steve's most famous gig was he was the chair of Innovation Tri-Valley Leadership Group for a couple of years and did an incredible job leading us. David.
Since these are all your friends, Splint, perhaps you should introduce them, since you know all the detail. I'd like to introduce James Johnson. Stand up.
Stand up. Stand up.
Who is the owner of Sound City.
All right.
Yay.
Welcome. Now, what else you want to say about him, Splint?
He's here to listen to our speaker.
Ah.
All right. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming and joining us. All right. What do we got next here, Dennis? Oh, okay. I only have one announcement. Gow, do you want to hand out some pins? Okay. You want to do it from there? Or you want to come up here? Wherever you want to go. Come up here. Come up here.
We have two recognitions for a Paul Harris Fellow. Alan, would you please come up? And TJ. You're part of it.
I know part of it. We want to take a picture, don't we?
Yeah, okay. So Alan gets Paul Harris +4 pin today. Let me know. Okay. Like to say a word or two?
So this year I donated to the Polio Plus Foundation, and a few years ago, I heard what this Rotary had done in collaboration with Bill Gates towards bringing polio almost to extinction. But as you know, polio has been detected again in New York. The job is not done, and it really inspired me. Hey, they need another $1,000.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. PJ. Well, I'm very happy to present a pin to this man who in 2009 gave me no choice and just said, "You're coming to Rotary." And that said that at the end of distributing dictionaries, cooperation with the temple. I'm very proud to present the Paul Harris +8. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. And the next step is major donor. No more Paul Harris fellow. Okay, would you like to say anything?
I brought some words. So when you think of what $1,000 can do, it matters a lot what you spend it on and where and how you spend it. Through our Rotary Club built 45 houses in India 15 years ago for just $1,000 a piece. They were built of concrete with metal roofs. 2 rooms had electricity and running water. Each now probably houses an extended family forever for $1,000. We could not have done that without the help of Rotarians there as our partners. How far would $1,000 go for housing in Livermore? So Barbara and I remodeled our master bathroom for thousands of dollars a couple of years ago. And it serves the 2 of us very nicely, I will say. But the kinds of toilets that RcoL built in Central America cost a fraction of $1,000. And each one serves hundreds of people for years. $1,000 to Rotary will polio vaccinate 1,000 kids. If you were to buy that immunization here, it's $100 at CVC to get a polio vaccine. So $1,000 goes a long way. When your money is spent in these third world social and economic conditions, it goes a long way. Macro loan for $1,000 allows a woman to start a capitalist business and support her family. $1,000 to the Nepalese Children's Fund used to put 4 kids through school for a year. It costs $15,000 to put one kid through the public school system here in across the country. Rotary International works on the ground on these problems, helping individual children, their parents, their village communities to experience the happy, healthy, educated life in peace and on a scale that multiplies your dollars by a huge factor. Unique to Rotary International, every $1,000 you give is $1,000 spent directly on global welfare. Not a dime goes to administration. And the money is not held to be distributed a few percent a year, like most foundations, like our own foundation. It's all spent within a couple of years. It's the most efficient charity in the world, often because there's a local Rotarian there on the ground actually doing the good work. So you don't have to give $1,000 all at once. I think it took me 4 or 5 years to accumulate my first Paul Harris. But please make that your target, $1,000 to Rotary International, for others to enjoy the same life, freedom, and happiness that we enjoy. Once you get started, it gets easier, and it's literally worth their whole life to those who get the benefit of it. Thank you.
Thank you. This year, we made it easier to achieve the Paul Harris Fellow. We have instituted matching foundation recognition points for over $100. I have prepared a 1-page summary of all different levels of recognition and how the matching works, and I'll be sending that as an email. I think taken me a little time to put together, but I think it's worth your time to understand it. If you have any questions, I'll be there every meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, God, TJ Allen. Okay, this is a quick announcement. The publisher, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we had the publisher of the Livermore Vine, who also is the publisher of the Pleasanton Weekly and other media outlets throughout on the Bay Area. They're sponsoring and have a table for the Heart of the Valley. This is this Friday. If you're interested in attending, you can see the details there. Perhaps raise your hand or think about it or email me. It's free. to sit at their table. There are 10 tickets. I offered it first to the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore's board. I didn't get any takers. But if you're interested in going, should be fun. And you can see that, it's Open Heart Kitchen, which is, a charity, obviously we've supported very much so in the past. So let me know. Okay. Thank you. And Kim Grudel says she's going to be there. I know she's also, her bank is sponsoring a table also. Okay. Let's see. I know Loretta's not here. Loretta, are you virtual? I don't think so. Jeff, she's
Yes,
not.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
good.
I
Go
am
ahead,
virtual.
Loretta. Go ahead, Laura.
I just wanted to say what a blast we had at Maryland Avenue School for their back to school barbecue. They made us this great thank you, and you can just see the happy faces on the kids and the parents. And right over my shoulder on the, let's see, it would be my left shoulder. That is Dana Taylor, the principal of the school. And she was just blown away by our efficiency and ability to feed that horde of parents and families that came through. I want to thank the entire team.
Thank you very much, Loretta. Thank you for organizing that. And thank you for, you see some of the folks there, Christian, Dennis, Sheila, Kelly. That's Debbie there, I think, Loretta, Joel. Thank you very much for what you all did. It was very important that we do this every year. We've done it for about a couple of decades now. So it's really great that we pulled it off. And I'm sure the parents and especially the kids really appreciate it. I know last week we got note that, Al Lewis passed away, and we're going to have, there should be an obituary, I believe, tomorrow in the Independent. And I've been talking to Mike Morgan. I know Mike walked in. We're going to try to set up a program to talk about Al. Al had an incredible life and an incredible career. And he lived here in town for 5 decades, 6 decades, maybe something like that. He was the city attorney of Livermore for a while. He was a judge for a while. Some of you may remember the program. I believe it was Jack Noonan and Al. Mike, am I right? Remember that program we had about 10 years? They talked about the good old days of the court when it was you, Roy, and Jack. Jack was maybe on the defense side. You guys were on the prosecution side, and the bombing. I remember that story quite vividly. I think some of you probably remember that when it was the firehouse was the courthouse. And so we're hoping we're going to put together a little program to talk about Al and his I think it's a service memory of his life. I believe is on the 16th of September. And I know it's going to be at Beebs. I think don't hold me on the date. We'll let everybody know. 19th. Thank you, Diane. I must 19th of September. And I know it's at Beebs because his daughter told me at Beebs. Okay. What do we got next? Ready program, Bob. I know we're going a little over, but we'll get there. Want to do it from there, Bob? Or
Do it from here. So I talked with Lori Valenzuela, our support teacher. She's in that picture somewhere. Go to the next slide. We're going to start September 12th or 13. The 12th is a Monday. We're planning for Monday, but there may be teachers meetings on Monday, and that may make us go to Tuesday. We're going to start in the library as always. Starting time is 2:45. The kids are out at 2:38. That gives them 8 minutes to get there, which maybe they'll get there in time. We have 5 field trips planned there. You can see the dates. They run through the year. Exploratorium, Oakland Museum, California Academy of Science, Chabot, Oakland Zoo. Who doesn't want to be a Ready member? And those are really cool trips that go on, not with the kids like them too. So, so a couple of people asked me, how do you sign up? And good question, because I'm told that, go to the school district portal and be a volunteer. And I go there and it's under construction. So I'll send an email out as soon as I have all the
But what we're going to need to do, if you haven't done it before, is you need a TB test, which is pin prick thing on your skin. I think it's every 3 or 4 years, 4 years. So if you haven't had one yet, you're new, you have to do that. You'll have to fill out the application. They do a background check. And you have to fill out the application, be a visitor as well on the website. So, and that's about it. Little feedback. I went into Dom's Surplus's new place, which isn't Dom's Surplus anymore. And I was looking for something and when I'm walking out, the guy who I think is maybe the manager of the place came up to me and says, "Are you a Rotarian?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "I was in the Ready program." And I said, and so we chatted back and forth. And at the end, I said, "Did it help you?" He said, "Well, yeah." So it really does make a difference. So that was Daniel, by the way. It was Daniel. You taught him the clarinet. Yeah.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you very much. Great program. Thanks, Bob. Okay. Sonia, Sheila, you want to come on up? Dennis? Okay. We have a district governor visit on November 18th. She's told us she loves to dance and she wants to learn a dance. Now, this is not the dance. You got to step away, step away, step away. Dennis came up with this. Go ahead, play it, Dennis. Okay, so I realize we're not that young and we're not that flexible. So Sonia and Sheila have come up with a little alternative for us to learn. Hit it. So that is the Livermore Stomp, and that's what we're going to
That's right.
teach.
The wiggle is optional. Oh, it got really loud.
All right, we all good with this? This is the day. We're all going to do it on the, so we're going to practice a few times. All right, what do we got next, Dennis? Next week program, Alan will be engaging, and Sheila.
And as I'm walking up, I did want to mention for Alan, he is going to be selling his book and there'll be $20 a piece and 100% of the proceeds come to Rotary. So I think that's very gracious and generous of you. Thank you, Alan. Okay, so today I'm very excited and I love this little lead-in sentence. We're not in Kansas anymore. So today we have a wonderful gentleman that's going to speak to us. His name is Mark McMillan. He represents the Livermore's first cannabis dispensary in Livermore, and that's Garden of Eden. Mark has provided his perspective on key issues facing consumers, operators, and regulators when it comes to cannabis. For the last decade, Mark has had a front row seat to evaluate the California cannabis industry. He has worked for two of the largest and most influential dispensaries in California, which is Harborside and Garden of Eden in Hayward. Mark has been a part of servicing and analyzing over 2.5 million customers. Mark is currently the Vice President of Cannabis for Eden Enterprises. If you all could please join me in welcoming Mark McMillan.
I don't think I'm gonna walk too much. I'll probably just perch right here. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. The characteristic Livermore level of civic engagement is on display, as it is in every venue that I seem to go to. I've got a lot to cover, so I'm gonna try to go as quickly as I can. Garden of Eden, this is our store in Hayward. Many of you may or may not have seen it. We've been around for a long time, and this is why I'm here. Our second store, this is about to open at 7,000 Tesla Road. This is the former almost famous wine tasting venue, which has evolved to the new location in Basco Road. And so we will be occupying this property. We are in the final phases. I think it's within 3 weeks. That's my best guess. We're in the final phases of approvals with the county. It's imminent. Everything is built out. It's coming soon. We're vibrating in place with excitement. So, okay, this I don't know if you can see, you can see our logo. Just a quick, in our logo to the right, that's the tree of life, Garden of Eden. You get the metaphor. That's an apple. And if you look at the BART map there, you can kind of see the inspiration. That is literally, I wish I could take credit for this, but the designer who did this. So that's what the Garden of Eden, the tree of life is. It's a little bit more about our company because we've had an impact, I would say. And Livermore has very high standards as a community. And I'd like to say we deserve to be here too. Garden of Eden is one of the oldest cannabis dispensaries in California, and being around since 2002. So that means our operational tree has a lot of fire rings in it. We've witnessed and gone through a lot. And our store in Hayward is 2.5. It's an exceptional store. It's about 2.5 size the average dispensary in California. The same entity, the same group of people also founded Trees, which is the #1 enterprise software platform in California for retailers. So we also have we operate the largest hemp farm in Alameda County, Terpene Belt Farms. And currently we're very involved at the state level. Our general counsel is currently the board committee of the California Cannabis Industry Association. Okay, yeah, I guess I'd better explain this title. These artifacts of my youth. This up in the upper left, this is an aerostat balloon, and this was launched by my dad as part of the drug war to capture planes that were coming through, the Pablo Escobar planes trying to deliver cocaine. So my college, at my high school, the food on my table was drug war food growing up. This is me to the right. I'm number 12, bottom right. I didn't smoke cannabis until I was in my early 20s. I was drug tested all the way through college, and I actually had an internship with the FBI in college. And that was when I was in my early 20s. That's how I thought things were going to turn out. Needless to say, we're not in Kansas anymore. And that's true for me. If you told me that one day I would have had the title Vice President of Cannabis, I would have looked at you like you were absolutely crazy. And to some extent, all of us who have gone through the legalization movement of cannabis, on some measure, we have this feeling. And there's a lot to take in. There's a lot to detail. I think of cannabis as sort of a fast moving river with different pockets of stuff going. It's very hard to keep track of it. So my preoccupation in preparing today was how can I be of maximum service? And so I've arrived at 3 things I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the Sherpa speech. The Sherpa speech I give to every new user of cannabis. I'm going to address the Californian in you. And then finally, I'm going to address the Livermudlian. Is that the correct in you? Okay, quick basic education about cannabis. What's important is that you get a perspective. So, well, sorry, actually, before I start this, the first 3 points I'm going to make of the Sherpa speech are, number 1 is you need to find a weed Sherpa, find a weed mentor. In talking with some of you, many of you have that, your relatives, but you're not going to learn about cannabis from the government. You're not going to learn about cannabis from Kaiser. You're going to learn about cannabis of people who have been learning about cannabis from time immemorial, which is talking to your friends and people who you trust. That will, in the regulatory market, it's still the same thing. Now, the nuance, of course, when you talk to a bud tender, and if a bud tender is also a good weed Sherpa, right? We love doing this work, so we're happy to help you, but it's important that you have a mentor. So common sense suggestion number 1. Okay, suggestion number 2. You need to think of cannabis as and hold it as an industrial strength tool. Like any sort of powerful tool, it takes time to tune it. It takes time to find your use to it. And so if you treat it with the proper respect that it deserves, you won't get yourself into uncomfortable situations. So common sense number 2, find a weed mentor. 2, treat it as an industrial strength tool, give it the respect. It's going to require it may require some trial and error in finding what's right for you. Okay. Point number 3, when you receive recommendations, you should do so with the Indian nod. You know, the Indian nod thing where you do this, which is one, I love it. And it conveys complexity. If someone gives you a recommendation about cannabis or a particular product, by all means, take it in. I make recommendations all the time, but you need to know and understand that everyone's brain chemistry is different, and what works for one person may not work for another. So if someone gives you a recommendation, it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean it was a bad person. It doesn't mean they were wrong. It just means that wasn't your product. So, okay. And what's also important to do is to talk about medical cannabis, to understand what all the buzz is about. And talking with some of you, many of you have had your own experiences with it. It's important to understand kind of what all the buzz is about. At the left, you see a dried cannabis flower. It's a close-up view, and you see that white piece. It almost looks that white bit looks like flower frosting, is what I would call it. All the good stuff in cannabis is in this flower frosting, and although you can't really see it because it's that concentric circles here, every cannabis plant has these components in it. It has major cannabinoids, which you've heard of. That's either THC or CBD. Okay, but it has additional cannabinoids called minor cannabinoids, and those are in that middle ring. And they're less abundant in amount, but it doesn't mean they're less potent or significant in terms of the overall impact of cannabis on the body and the mind. And then finally, the outer ring are terpenes, which is the flavor and taste of cannabis. So every cannabis product that you consume has some blend of all these 3 things. And what's interesting as we go forward here, that word cannabinoids, okay, this graphic depicts the major body systems: skeletal, respiratory, muscular, circulatory. All the way to the right, you see endocannabinoid. You see that word cannabinoid again. Okay, so cannabis science is nascent. We all know that, right? It's been illegal to research. So some of the research, right, we're still finding out. It's still in its infancy. What they have discovered, what scientists have discovered, is that we actually have a major body system called the endocannabinoid system, which is designed to eat cannabinoids. And its focus is homeostasis which is the regulates the balance of the body. So not only was this incorrect and wrong, the propaganda, well, not only was it wrong, it so turns out that there's actually a major body system that's designed, that we're just understanding, that's designed to use what cannabis does. So this is why there are so many different applications of cannabis, or emerging applications of cannabis. And each one, there have been, I think, 113 cannabinoids identified to date. Each one of those 113 cannabinoids could at some point be subjected to its own clinical trial as it makes its way into the pharmacopoeia of our society. So this is what the whole sort of, what all the attention is about. There's a reason for all the attention. Okay, so, right, I'm going to share, right, I'm allowed to share my experiences. I'm not a doctor, right? And this is what we're trained to do and deal all the time. You all have questions. I can't give you medical advice. But what I can do is share what other people, what other customers have done. So it's important for you to understand that nuance. And obviously you're responsible for your own medical decisions. I'm not a doctor, so that's been covered. Okay. Over my career so far, the people going through chemo who need appetite support, that's an easy one, right? Reducing the effects of nausea, PTSD, very, very common. A way to get off opioids, pain management. As long as you know what the pain is, don't use cannabis if you don't know what the pain is. Bad idea, right? But if you do know what the pain is, it can be extremely helpful. Epilepsy, right? Glaucoma. And the inherent thing about cannabis, regulated cannabis is tested, okay? It's tested in the supply chain. There's no fentanyl on it. That's a little extreme, but it's important that you understand and protect the investment we're making in the regulated market. And, cannabis as a product is non-toxic as a substance. It's impossible to OD on cannabis. That's right. That's not true of alcohol. That's not true of, obviously, opioids. So we don't know yet all the medical applications of cannabis. And that's going to unfold over the next 25 years and beyond. What you do know is give it a shot. If you have something that you think might be worth it, and you're not fighting any sort of unknown medical conditions, you may have some success trying cannabis. It's relatively risk-free. Okay, I'm going to do something that people don't usually do. I'm going to talk about what it's like to be high. And the reason why people don't talk about that is because when you've been subjected to propaganda, particularly as a child, drugs are bad, drugs are evil, it makes an emotional imprint, right? That emotional imprint for a lot of people brings up shame. And this is why it feels edgy for me to talk about what it's like being high. One of the things that we have to sort of evolve with the use of cannabis is we need safe places and safe places to talk about the use of the product. That's why the weed mentor advice, you really need someone who you can talk to about what it's like, right? Someone that you don't feel they're going to judge you. And again, I'm saying a bunch of obvious things, but these are fundamental things that will support your use and exploration. So for me, the sleep, it gets me from 3:30 to 5:30, I would say. It gives me 2 hours of sleep. That's me. And you may be different. But this is obviously a very common use. Something else that I show these slides over the right. This is a hobby I developed where on weekends, I like to go hiking and smoke a joint and be in nature. And I got started doing photography, which in order to do photography, you need to be super present. And I always weave that, and I look for photography that explains the business situations that I'm in. And this is a silly, trivial, recreational thing, right? It's not important to my work, but it keeps me more engaged in my life. It helps me enjoy nature, and it keeps me thinking about my job in some ways in a way that's engaging and pleasurable. So these are two of my personal examples. of how I use the product in a recreational context. And it's really important that we talk about our use of cannabis. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's summarize. Find a weed Sherpa, hold cannabis as an industrial tool, recommendations with the Indian nod, right? What works for some people may not work for you. Medical cannabis is real and emerging. It's real. And talk about your recreational use. These are, to me, this is when I'm presented with people who are new and starting their cannabis journey. This is the advice I give. Okay, let's do the California history lesson, because some of this you know, but it's important that you understand what's gone on and what's going on in our state, because the story of cannabis really is the story of California. The Poison Act of 1913 was the first set of books that made it illegal to have cannabis outside of having a prescription. California was first in outlawing cannabis. William Randolph Hearst, he should be canceled retroactively, in my opinion, right? He's the Chronicle, Hearst Castle, really the innovator of yellow journalism. He had a huge part in making cannabis and getting cannabis made illegal, partly for his business interests in the paper industry and the chemical industry. What would our forests be like if we were using hemp paper as opposed to wood paper for the last 200 years? So the misinformation of William Randolph Hearst, today it's the Chronicle. The Hearst media is still very present, but in terms of villains of cannabis, William Randolph Hearst. Next time you go to Hearst Castle, think about that. 1972 was the first time that it went to a ballot initiative. It was the first vote by any population to make cannabis legal. That happened in 1972. The War on Drug Twins. Anybody have a guess on who that would be? That's Richard Nixon, the author, and Ronald Reagan. That's who I call so they are really the authors of the sort of the modern war on drugs as we know it. In the 1960s, a lot of things happened, but it's important that you understand really, the Bay Area did its thing with cannabis. What I mean by that is we innovated and scaled it. And so sinsemilla, that word, it means plants without seeds. So what they discovered is that if they produce cannabis plants are male and female. Everything that you smoke or have heard of or consume is taken from a virgin female plant. That's what cannabis is. And so in the 60s, you had people coming back from Vietnam, bringing seeds from Asia. You had people coming, or you had stuff coming up from Mexico. What the Emerald Triangle did, what California did, was it figured out that growing plants before they get pollinated, getting rid of all the male plants, combining genetics from these different parts of the world and bringing them together, that was the breakthrough that made the Emerald Triangle, that made California cannabis the world leader. Really, the AIDS crisis was an important genesis to the medical cannabis movement and why we're in the situation and the setting that we are here today, right? As cannabis was raging through San Francisco and the Castro, that was where, and it makes sense, homeostasis, pervasive health in the body. This is where the original medical use and the original groundswell and push towards legalization came from. So it's important to understand that as we go forward. And of course, in 1996, California became the first state to legalize cannabis on any level, which was the dawn of the medical cannabis era. And then of course, now we're at Prop 64 that was passed in 2016. In 2018, January 1st, this is when the recreational market continued. Now let's provide an update on where cannabis is right now in the state of California. This is an article someone of my family sent to me 2 days ago from the Washington Post. It's a really hard time to be an operator for cannabis in California. And, you know, how do I want to strike the right notes and tone here. I don't want to be political. And we need to evolve the regulatory thinking because it's extreme. What's happening is really, it's a shame. And California should be the leader. It's been the leader. It should be the global leader in cannabis. And how the state has set it up currently and implied it has a problem. There are challenges with that. California's taxes are higher than anybody else. They're higher than all their neighbors, right? What does that impact? The impact is it's empowered a black market. And the black market now, the taxes are so high, the black market opportunity hasn't diminished. And as law enforcement has put less and less attention on it, and now the people involved in the illegal market now aren't just in homesteaders in Trinity County. They're companies that are they're trying to survive. And so they're selling black market products with packaging on the market. So what does that do for a legal operator? It makes it really hard to survive. So there's some real challenges that California has. This is right. As a result, the state is now awash in tax revenue, much of it from industrial scale farmers and retailers. And a market glut has gutted the wholesale prices and left farmers really let the small farmer out. Like some of this is natural capitalism. I get that, right? There's going to be a competitive, right? We are in a market economy. There's going to be competition. So that's to be expected. But the issue that we have is, right, California needs to protect its cannabis providers, and it's not doing a good job of that right now. This is kind of hyperbole, this last paragraph. The government has actually managed to do in just a few years what the war on drugs couldn't do in decades, which is to destroy the cannabis market. It's sad, but the issue isn't really with the growers. The main issue is this. Okay, can you get rid of that top bar or minimize that? Okay, this is an income statement. This is a normal business to the left. The normal business pays income taxes on earnings before taxes. You get all your deductions, all that selling general administrative expenses, right? That's how we all live. That's what your tax liability is calculated. But because cannabis is still illegal, the IRS has had on the books as an artifact of the war on drugs, a provision on the tax code called 280E. It was designed to destroy companies that are distributing Schedule I drugs. So our income taxes as a retail operator is my gross profit. I can't deduct my expenses. I can't deduct my salary. I can't deduct all the security that you're having me pay for. I can't deduct any of those things. And so what's happening is you have an entire population of companies that created the industry that are, because it's still illegal, every year they're accruing this liability that the IRS is intent on collecting. So the DEA isn't enforcing anything. The state is doing nothing to help the cannabis operators to address this fact. The state's collected $300 million in cannabis revenue, and what is it doing? What is it doing to help us? Like, we're trying to survive. Like when you have all these, we're fine with competition. We'll compete with each other all day long, but don't make me pay taxes on gross profit. It's not fair. And what it's doing is it's disenfranchising all the companies that invented the market. And so all these entities carry these giant liabilities on their books. What's going to happen to them, right? It's pretty cynical. All new companies are going to come in. They won't have any of these problems. So the legacy operators are being set up for fail. California's not doing anything to help us. They don't even acknowledge this problem. So, and the other thing that we deal with is, right, in Alameda County, and I'm gonna speak responsibly here. I'm required for every single employee I hire has to be approved by the sheriff. Every single employee I have to submit to the sheriff's department. They have to run a $200 background check, which I could do it myself for $40. And there's one sheriff that's available to do it. And sometimes I have a 3 to 4 week backlog. There's no way to figure out when they're going to be done. So here I am trying to create jobs, trying to create revenue, trying to move the market forward. I can't hire people because they're the sheriff because he wants to control, maybe it was a deal that the sheriff made to keep the Fed satisfied. I don't know, but this needs to evolve. This is not a way to run a business. This is not a way to support businesses, is to have, anyway, as you can see, it's very difficult to operate in this environment. Okay. Yes. So I think that the state has done a very effective job at 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in many respects, as we think about what we want cannabis to be in California, how we need to think about number 1. And it starts with all of the citizens, right? What should we be doing in the state? And obviously this is a universal question. What's government's role in supporting an industry? So now, finally, let's talk about the reason we're here. This project is a visionary project. Credit goes to the Kent family for coming up with it, because the best of what California offers in one destination. How cool would it be, or how much would it be good for agro-tourism if agro-tourism and cannabis tourism were combined, right? That's the potential. That's the future. Many, many years ago, the Livermore wine community lost the narrative to Napa. This project is unique. This project, this spot is a potential zeitgeist for the cannabis movement in California. And it's happening in Livermore, which is appropriate. So I'd say, give us some support, pay attention politically, and the cannabis market ought to be one of the crown jewels of California and supporting our economy. So in conclusion, let me say this: cannabis may be your thing, it may not be. It's not a product that works for everyone. I do not believe that cannabis it's an adult product. I think that's right, except for extreme medical situations. But I think mostly we're getting it right. Our job really isn't to sell, it's to educate. Of course, we have to compete we all have to compete, but cannabis doesn't need to be pitched or sold. People just need education, and that education needs to wash away the propaganda and the misinformation, which is often stronger than intellect. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being excited about it. We're very excited to be here, and I'm open to all and any questions.
Oops, thank you very much, Mark. Yeah, Alan, I just want to check on Zoom first. Any questions on Zoom?
Yes.
Hank? Go
Yes.
ahead.
Let's see, addressing the speaker. You mentioned a number of human systems in the human body that possibly can be influenced by cannabis and cannabis products, and by implication that there are possibly medical uses. Do your stores sell medical use products, not merely for recreational smoking?
It's a great question that I'm
and furthermore, are any of those products prescription products?
Answer to the second question is no. Answer to the first question is there's actually no such thing as medical cannabis. What I mean by that is that the production process for a medical cannabis product is exactly the same as a recreational product. The medical designation is a licensing mechanism that was designed to allow, if you're a medical user or patient, you can buy more and with a slight discount tax-wise. But the products themselves are 100% the same, whether they're recreational or medical. There's one product.
Let me explain that part of the question.
Hey,
It's,
can we move on to other questions? Because we have other people in here also.
okay, some of the products are made into liquids that can be put on sore muscles or so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Mark to weave that in, but Alan, if you have a question?
Yes, I do. It's been my understanding that the banking system, especially the federally regulated banking system, has been very negative to the cannabis industry. Has there been any improvement in that situation?
There's been very little improvement. Getting a bank account for the dispensary on 7,000 Tesla Road took 5 months. And that's with the Kents as the people they were analyzing and assessing their credit. And this is with a bank that we've been doing business with for 5 years. So it's, direct deposit, hard to get. There's a certain sector of companies that are willing to do it, right? So basic banking, and we get charged twice as much for the services that we do get. We aren't allowed any sort of credit cards as a business. So yeah, we don't have access to working capital support in the banking sense. Banking services is still a problem. It has not improved. And again, it's part of the malaise that is the current state.
Let's see, Kim says, as long as Kim Grudel adds, as long as the banks are federally insured and it's still illegal on the federal. I think her point is it's the feds that are prohibiting the banks from being less restrictive. Final, I'll take on Hank's question unless there's somebody else. He asked probably about topical applications.
There are topical applications for cannabis. Some of them, right? THC is what gets you high. Some cannabis products, some are designed to be transdermal, get through the skin and get to your bloodstream, which will potentially get you high. Most topicals are not. They work their magic in their own way, but you can put it on, you can put it on without kind of being, if you're worried about getting high.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. So I just want to add one thing I forgot to add about Al Lewis, and that is, and of course, Alan will be here next week as our speaker. His daughter, the obituary will say that anyone who wants to remember Al could make a contribution to the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore. So that's where the family would like to see contributions made. With that, thank you for coming. Best damn 90 minutes of your